Hello. The theme of my devotion today is, in a time of sickness and sorrow, finding and following our best example. As we live through this global pandemic, as we face questions about economic uncertainty in our economy, as we begin to be more aware of some of the violence and some of the racism that certain groups in our culture and in our communities face regularly, it really can leave us wondering, how do we live? How do we best reflect the values that we hold and traditions that matter most to us? My name is Michael, and I work as Director of Youth Ministry at Bethel. I work with the young people and their families and help coordinate educational programs, fellowship activities, and trips. I also have the opportunity right now to do some graduate studies at the University of Alberta. And so I'm working on some studies in religious studies. This last winter term, I was invited to teach an introductory course on religious studies, and so talked a little bit with students about religion in general, and then we focused on the traditions of Judaism, Christianity, and Islam. As part of our course, we talked about religions working in cooperation with each other. Bishop Krister Stendahl was a Lutheran bishop in Sweden, and he was asked at a certain point, as part of his leadership role, what he might think about new religions moving into Sweden. And so this was his response. He came up with 3 suggestions. He said, when trying to understand another religion, you should ask the adherents of that religion and not its enemies. Point 2, don't compare your best to their worst. And point 3, leave room for holy envy. Point 1 is good advice in any situation. If you're meeting a new person or a new group of people, it's best to talk to them directly to get to know who they are and what they care about. And point 3, Bishop Stendahl seems to be suggesting that as we look at other traditions, there may be things that we come to admire about how people live or how they practice their faith. For the purposes of this devotion, I really wanted to think about point number 2, and I wanted to ask a question. Who is our best? As we think about being Christians and being part of the Christian tradition, who might best represent our tradition? One obvious answer would be Jesus. And as I think about Jesus washing the feet of his disciples in the Gospel of John, he has this to say. He says, you call me teacher and Lord, and rightly so, for that is what I am. Now that I, your Lord and teacher, have washed your feet, you also should wash one another's feet. I have set you an example that you should do as I have done. And so in these troubled times, one example that we can look to is the example of Jesus, his willingness to come, to care, to lovingly serve. This can serve as an example for us as we try to navigate these complicated times. Another example that we might consider is Paul. As Paul writes in his letter to the Corinthians, follow my example as I follow the example of Christ. Now, the other examples that we might look at are other Christians. And so, again, from a letter of Paul's, join together in following my example, brothers and sisters. And just as you have us as a model, keep your eyes on those who live as we do. One of the most important things that I've had the opportunity to do is to learn about different Christians from the past who've had to live in some very complicated and challenging times. And so I think about people like William Wilberforce, or C.S. Lewis, Dietrich Bonhoeffer, Bishop Desmond Tutu, Martin Luther, Dorothy Day, Martin Luther King Jr., Mother Teresa, Polycarp, a leader in the early church, Flannery O'Connor, the current Pope, Pope Francis. All of these people in different ways can serve as an inspiration and an example of how to live the Christian life. Now, many of them were not perfect, are not perfect, and yet they can provide an example of what it means to live and to serve and to follow in complicated times. The other people that I think about when I think about examples that I can look to are people like you. And you might ask the question, who? Me? Yes, you. I am so inspired by so many people at Bethel who really do try to live a genuine, authentic Christian life, really trying to take seriously what it means to love God and to love other people, trying to be the best example that we can be of this Christian tradition that we're a part of. Please pray with me. God, these are troubled times in so many different ways. We pray for your help. We pray for your strength. We pray for your guidance. And we thank you for the examples that you've provided in Jesus, in Paul, in so many other Christians. Help us to be inspired and encouraged as we seek to live and to follow and to serve in ways that honor you. Amen.